Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at inspireddisorder.com/plus.
This is The Ray Taylor Show.
Welcome to Top 5 from The Ray Taylor Show, where each week I rank movies in a variety of categories, from franchise to subgenre to directors and actors. No film is left unwatched as I break down my top 5 picks. So join me every Saturday for a new episode and get ready to dive into the world of film with Top 5 from The Ray Taylor Show. In this episode, I am going to be doing my top 5 Star Trek films. I have, from the original franchise to the next generation, and including the reboots, the more recent reboots of the franchise. In this episode, I boldly go to a place where so many have already gone before. The ranking of Star Trek movies, I'm sure, is not new to the internet. I would say the majority of these films was a first-time watch for me. I've only watched some of the Next Generation TV show growing up. So I don't really have a strong connection to the TV series in any major way. I don't have a connection to the majority of these films, because a lot of these films part of the TV series, inspired by additions to the TV series that were going on, whether it's the original Star Trek or the Next Generation. Obviously, the only movies in this entire franchise that were on their own movies are the more recent reboots, which I've seen those, obviously. But for the most part, most of these, are a first-time watch, and I'm sure I will ruffle some feathers with my picks. They may not be, Star Trek fans may not be very happy with the movies that I choose, that I found to be my favorite top 5. But that being said, I would imagine that there is a varying degree of movies that people enjoy or don't enjoy, especially if you're familiar with the TV shows or have a specific connection to a specific cast or whatever. So with all that said, I would say as a whole, this franchise is definitely more consistently good than, maybe some other wildly popular space-themed franchises. I would say that maybe, the highest of highs may not be at the same level as some other space-themed franchises, but the lowest of lows are nowhere near. I would say consistently there's a fairly high level of quality or entertainment that I got from watching these in comparison to some other space-themed franchises that exist. But let's get into it. With all that said, let's get started with my top 5, starting off with my number 5, my 5th favorite Star Trek film. This is coming from the original cast, I guess you would say, the original series. Coming in at number 5 is Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. This is a movie where the Klingons have 50 years left of oxygen or whatever. Kirk still holds the grudge for the Klingons killing his son. There is kind of a lot of racism, a lot of speciesism in this. There's comments like they all look alike in reference to the Klingons, or that they smell. So definitely on the nose with the racism in this movie towards the Klingons. It's got like the Enterprise is kind of beat up. It's made to look like there's set up in this movie. There's a situation where the Enterprise is set up to look like that they fired on a Klingon ship, but they're trying to find out what really happened, and they're not not confident. Like, there's supposed to be this peace treaty thing going on, and it's made to look like the Enterprise fired on them, and then which leads to basically Kirk and the Doctor going to Klingon court and being thrown into like a prison colony. It's also a bit of a whodunit, as the crew that remains on the Enterprise trying to find the people that may be responsible, that is potentially hiding among them, searching for the owners of the gravity boots. It's pretty great. I really enjoyed it. I like the whodunit nature of it, that kind of mystery. I enjoy the aliens as they went to the space the prison colony or whatever. A lot of fun. So that's why it's here at number 5, Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. Moving on to number 4, my 4th favorite Star Trek movie. This is one that I believe was a bit of a passing of the torch. I've heard negative of all these. I've read and listened to and experienced other people's top lists of ranking these movies, and I realized that there's going to be some controversy in what may be on this list and what may be off this list. But coming in at number 4 is Star Trek Generations. This is the first film of the Next Generation chunk, featuring the cast from Star Trek The Next Generation. Definitely a passing of the torch. It also has Kirk at the beginning of this film kind of doing a press thing on the Enterprise with a new captain, but it's a very unprepared ship, and things start to happen, and he saves the crew. This is the movie where Data gets the emotional chip, which is a little cheesy, but that obviously starts to go wrong, as does many times. You get to see Picard and Kirk meet in the kind of nexus, this kind of afterlife kind of area where they both are existing, living in their dream scenarios. You get to see Kirk not only sacrifice himself once to save people, but sacrificing himself twice. You get to see him and Picard both take on the enemy. It's a fun movie where it felt like a nice passing of the torch from the original series to the Next Generation. I had a lot of fun watching it and really enjoyed it. So that's why it's coming in at number 4, Star Trek Generations. Let's take a quick break from this episode to talk about Attention all Ray Taylor Show fans! We're excited to announce we've just released a line of exclusive merchandise featuring original artwork inspired by the show. Our high-quality shirts and biodegradable phone cases are a perfect way to show your support for the show and make a great gift for any fan. Plus, with each purchase, you'll be helping us continue to bring you great content. So don't wait. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com now and check out the full collection. Thanks for listening, and we hope you'll show your support by grabbing some Ray Taylor Show merchandise today. And now, let's get back to the show. Moving on to my 3rd favorite Star Trek film. This is one that, I think it's a little bit darker. I think this one got me a little bit emotional, I guess you could say, out of the few that actually did. This one starts off with the wedding, which is kind of fun. This one coming in at number 3 is Star Trek Nemesis. This being the final film by the Next Generation crew. Like I said, starting off with a wedding, you have a young Tom Hardy as the villain, which I thought was kind of fun. Like, recognized him and like, wait a minute, is that, looking up on IMDb and seeing that it's Tom Hardy. This is a movie that has mind rape in it, which is kind of brutal. It's it's the beginning. There's like them luring them into this planet to collect the different body parts of this android that are similar to Data. And there's a fun dune buggy scene where they jump the dune buggy into their kind of space spacecraft, which I thought was a lot of fun. This is a movie that I thought had good action. I think one of the problems, despite the fact that this is the second movie from the Next Generation crew that's on my list, it really felt like a lot of the movies from the Next Generation just kind of felt like episodes, like long episodes from a show that, I enjoyed watching but don't really have a lot of connection to. Watching all these movies definitely makes me want to go and rewatch all of the shows, which I've already added to my list and look forward to. And maybe I'll revisit the movies as I go along, and we'll probably have a new kind of perspective on them and maybe would rank them differently. But yeah, Star Trek Nemesis, a lot of fun. He rams them with the ship, which, I thought was good action, as I said. You have Data sacrificing himself, which I felt was a bit emotional, and then having the B4 take over. Starts with a wedding and ends with a funeral for Data, which, I thought was a fitting and a good end. I don't know. That was one that I was really difficult for me to gauge these movies, and then as I was going, the ones I connected with and that I felt like I was along on the ride and felt emotional connections when things happened, those were the ones that really made the list. So there's going to be some that people are mad that aren't on this list, but they're not on this list because for whatever reason I didn't connect with them emotionally. So with that said, I'm moving on to number 2. I'm moving on to this movie that surprised me that I loved as much as I did. For a while, this was my number 1. And I recently listened to a podcast where they were ranking these, and this was actually somebody's least favorite, which blew me away. This is one that I loved. I just instantly, while I was along for the ride, I cared about everything. I was super into it, and for a while, like I said, this was my number 1. But then in kind of recontemplation of my list, decided to move it down to number 2. But coming in at number 2, my second favorite Star Trek film is Star Trek Into Darkness. I did not expect to like any of the reboots. I actually hated the reboot spoilers. None of the other reboots are on this list. I'm not a fan of J.J. Abrams, despite the fact this is his. I hated the 2009 Star Trek. Way too, it's just constant camera movements, constant obscuring of the video, tons of, lens flares, camera movements, just ridiculous action that you can't even see happening. It starts off with some fun moments, but overall, I thought was a garbage movie, the 2009 Star Trek. And then I watched this, which I was like, I knew JJ directed this one. I was like, kind of had a low bar for it. And this movie starts off fun, where they're saving these indigenous people on this planet, trying to stop a volcano from erupting. The Enterprise is underwater for some reason. The makeup and the setting, everything looks cool. It's a fun adventure. They do this thing, break some rules. It's just, and then it has Khan, which the whole thing with these reboots is that it's a different timeline than all of the other movies, right? This is set up to be a separate timeline, like a different universe than all these other movies. So whereas the original Kirk, James T. Kirk, had a father who grew up with him that taught him, and that inspired him to be a captain. In this version of events, Kirk's dad dies, right? Because in the first movie, the guy goes back in time and then kills him, right? Altering the events of the timeline. And so in this one, the Khan is the actor, and all the scenario is different. And I loved it. I was totally in with what's his face, Cumberbatch as Khan. I was in on all of it. Kirk sacrificing himself to realign the lasers or whatever, to reignite the engines, right? Getting himself radiated and dying, sacrificing himself. I loved every bit of it. Every bit that people didn't like, I loved. I was in, I bought it. I loved all of it. You get to see Khan versus Spock. You get some fun action scenes, right? They need Khan's blood to save Kirk, so they have to get him. You see Spock versus Khan a couple times, actually, crashing into San Francisco. Just like, surprised how much I loved this movie. I had so much fun. I was emotionally invested. I loved all of this thing. And then it ends with them going off on a 5-year mission with the Enterprise, right? So sets up for what would have been the beginning of like the series, right? So in a lot of ways, this reboot was also, it's a different timeline, but also kind of a prequel. I loved Into Darkness. I was so surprised. I hated the other two. So bad. But this one got me. Top down, loved it. Absolutely loved it. That's why it's here at number 2. Number 2, Star Trek Into Darkness. Let's take a quick break from this episode because I want to promote. Are you looking for a way to take your love of The Ray Taylor Show to the next level? Look no further than Inspired Disorder Plus. As a member, you'll get access to a whole host of amazing perks, including the full week of shows, ad-free in both audio and video versions, a live painting archive, early access to the many faces, members-only discounts and deals, a podcast back catalog with over 600 episodes. But that's not all. As a member, you'll get access to my personal blog as well as my creative writing. You'll also get the chance to ask me anything you want. With all of these benefits and more, Inspired Disorder Plus is a must-have for any fan of The Ray Taylor Show. So don't wait. Go sign up now. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com/plus and start enjoying all of the amazing perks of the membership. And now, let's get back to the show. Moving on to my number 1, my favorite Star Trek movie of all time. And a lot of people are going to be surprised that it is not the movie that I'm sure they may assume that I heard. One of the reasons why the movie they assume is not at number 1 is maybe because it was so overhyped that when I saw it, I was not blown away by it. And maybe I need to go back and rewatch it later on, but it's not here. Because my favorite Star Trek movie, my number 1 favorite Star Trek movie is The Voyage Home. From the original cast, it is such a fun ride. Time travel, they're going back to Earth at the present time when the movie was made, going back to San Francisco. You got a lot of fun fish out of water type of stuff. You know, you have the having to save the whales. Wait. Yeah. Having to save the humpback whales, right? Because there's this signal that they don't understand. All of that stuff. Them having to sneak into the hospital to save who was it? Somebody is in the hospital. I forget which one was in the hospital. They had to the Russian guy. Loved it. So much fun. Just so much fun. Every aspect of it I really enjoyed. So much different as well than all the other ones. And that's why coming in at number 1 is Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home. A lot of fun. So much fun. So good. And, it was so different and just like, I don't know. I really just enjoyed it. It was funny, had good adventure. I also like the movies that felt like, that they had to outthink. The solution was like understanding the problem and rethinking the problem and coming at it from a new perspective and understanding that it was like the whales calling and that having to go back in time when whales actually existed, having this movie having to do with, humans' impact on the environment that we live in, species going extinct, the destruction of the environment. All of those themes, all of those aspects of this movie played into it, but I also love the fish out of water stuff. It was a lot of fun. I really did enjoy it. So coming in at number 1 is Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home. Honorable mentions, obviously the one that everybody's mad at me that is not on this list is Wrath of Khan. I just wasn't into it. I just was not. I don't know if it was because the dude, the costuming looks so, it's just like, man, I was not in it at all. And I know there's some big moments that happen in that, very dramatic. I understand why everybody loves it, but I was not feeling it at all. And, I struggled to try and convince myself to keep it on the list just because I know so many people love it. But I wasn't digging it. Wrath of Khan didn't make the list. First Contact I thought was a lot of fun too, almost like origin story, another time travel thing. The motion picture, I thought the very first one, I actually kind of liked the very first one, where it's like the AI is I don't even know. I forget let's see here. I have my notes. The motion picture, it's like kind of psychedelic. There's definitely a lot of slow motion. Kind of, I know all of the criticisms, but like it's learned all that's learnable, but to return all that stuff to its creator, Earth. But I don't know. I really enjoy it. I really dug it. It kind of blew me away, and it was pretty high up on the list for a while, but then didn't work out. Anyway, let's recap this list, shall we, and get out of here. This is my top 5 Star Trek movies. Starting off with number 5 is Star Trek VI: The Undiscovered Country. Number 4 is Star Trek Generations. Number 3 is Star Trek Nemesis. Number 2 is Star Trek Into Darkness. And my number 1 favorite Star Trek movie is Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home. I do want to thank everybody who stuck with me to tune in to this episode of Top 5 from The Ray Taylor Show. I hope you enjoyed my rankings and analysis of my top 5 Star Trek movies. I hope you don't hate me too much for my opinions and my rankings. But I would love to know how you would rank the Star Trek films. I absolutely would. Before doing my ranking, I asked all of the people that I knew who are huge Star Trek fans to send me their rankings, and was kind of blown away at how different they were. But I would love to see your rankings, so please do that. Hit me up on social media or in the comments. Maybe let me know. Tell me which ones I should go back and reconsider. I'm looking forward to whatever new Star Trek. I loved, obviously, Into Darkness, so it's like the cast isn't the problem. I think the directors are the big problem with some of those movies. Maybe the writing. I don't know. It really got me, though. But don't forget to tune in next Sunday for a all new episode, and join the conversation by leaving a comment or rating on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube if you're watching this. But see you again next week for more Top 5.
New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere our podcasts are found. Binge the full week over at inspireddisorder.com/plus. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!
Today is the day where you wake up and you realize that everything that you've been dreaming about, everything that you've been wanting, every goal and wish and hope that you've ever had can become real. Dreams can come true. What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.